Over 100 chapters after getting her eye exploded, Nobara's fate still hangs in the balance. We're unsure if she'll survive or if she's permanently left the story. But regardless of that, I think Nobara deserved better treatment within the story of Jujutsu Kaisen, similar to how the other two members of her team got treated, Megumi and Yuji. The thing is, I and tons of other people expected more out of Nobara simply because it seemed like that's where we were headed prior. Prior to Shibuya, Nobara, even though she wasn't physically as overwhelming as Yuji, showed her usefulness in the scope of her curse technique against Eso and Kechizu, and proved herself to be a worthy sorcerer after hitting a Black Flash, gaining an unparalleled understanding of curse energy compared to a sorcerer who hasn't. In this video, I'll tell you how I would change certain things about her presence in the story, mainly during the Shibuya incident arc, and ways she could influence the story without changing the course of things too much. Before we begin, be sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more Jujutsu Kaisen videos like this one. One of the very popular theories in the Jujutsu Kaisen fandom is that the author of the series, Gege Akutami, simply does not like females, and Nobara was on the receiving end of this hate, which is why she got the fate that she did. Taking a look at Jujutsu Kaisen's female cast and where they end up, it's unignorable that they all suffered pretty horrible fates. Spoilers for the manga here, but Mai has to sacrifice her life for Maki to become awakened, Rika gets hit by a truck and turned into a cursed spirit, Riko gets unalived by Toji, Yuki gets cut in half after seeming like she's winning, Nobara gets her head exploded. The list goes on, but allow me to cut in here and say, everyone in this series suffers a terrible fate at the end. It's a concept introduced to us as early as the first few chapters of the story. If you run into a curse, even being torn apart might be considered a good death, and no Jujutsu sorcerer dies without regret. And the only possible exception to this rule is Satoru Gojo, who may have died without regret, but still died in a very gruesome way, being chopped in half. Nobito gets burned alive, Todo can't use his curse technique anymore, Mekamaru never got to meet with everyone, Geto got taken out by his best friend, Nanami was blown up in front of Yuji, Toji got his torso blown off by Gojo, and then again the list goes on. This horrible fate is nowhere near gender exclusive and has everything to do with the horrible nature of the Jujutsu world. Now, switching gears back to Nobara, there are some differences with her death between the anime and manga that I think need to be pointed out. When Shibuya was announced to have a narrator, a lot of manga readers were excited because there are some things you can't grasp about the story without the narrator there as a guide for those events. Even with this though, some scenes of narration have been cut from the anime, and Nobara's death scene is a scene that falls into this category. A key detail about Nobara's fight with Mahito's double is that she eventually stopped worrying about his hands because she figured out he could transfigure her soul. That much is in the anime, but when Nobara is actually getting hit by it, there's a missing piece of dialogue. The real body acted as a blind spot, so Nobara would not notice the switch. Furthermore, due to her battle against the double, she let her guard down against Mahito's hands. This dialogue better emphasizes the trickery Mahito used to actually put down Nobara, as opposed to just getting blitzed and dealt with like the anime would lead you to believe. And like I already said, everyone in JJK meets a horrible end, but Nobara meets this end a bit too fast, at least in my opinion. We just got done establishing that Nobara can naturally harm the soul with her resonance ability, and that makes her a natural enemy of Mahito's, just like Yuji. To have her done this way less than a chapter later is just a bit too fast paced for my liking, especially with a character that has so much potential. In a very obvious way, Nobara's demise was used as a ploy by Mahito to further his evolution, thinking of a heinous plan like bringing Yuji's dead friend to him as a means of breaking his soul, and then carrying out that plan to a T makes Mahito think of himself as a true curse and land a Black Flash on Yuji, the first one he ever pulled off. This is a situation where you can have your cake and eat it too, so to speak. Meaning Nobara didn't have to meet her end here in such a pathetic way, or should I say, as such a pathetic character, even if she does have to meet her end here. First, let me say though, knocking off Nobara is definitely a ballsy move on Gege's part. You go back to 2021 when the anime first debuted, and you have people saying that Nobara is the best female in anime and that Nobara is what Sakura could have been, and back then she didn't really do all that much, but she's pretty different in the sense that there's no romantic relationship between her and Yuji, and there is certainly no cliche love triangle between her, Yuji, and Megumi. But aside from being cool a few times within fights, Nobara loses every fight she participates in. The first curse she runs into in chapter 5 gets the better of her and she was saved by Yuji. The curses from chapter 7 get the better of her and she gets saved by Megumi. She catches Mai off guard with the help of Maki and wrestles her to the ground, but to be fair, Mai also had caught Nobara off guard before this. She loses to Mai again while she's beating Momo, albeit this was also off guard. But I think all of this makes what I would call her redemption fight more and more impressive, which is when she fought Eso and Kechizu. Due to the specific matchup, we get to see Nobara's curse technique shine and get used to its full potential. Remember, Eso and Kechizu aren't curses, but they're still labeled as special grade because they were thought to be curses. And I don't want to say Yuji and Nobara cleared them with no difficulty, but the plan they had without even talking and executing it perfectly the way they did not only won them the fight convincingly, but it's almost like the same thing Sasuke and Naruto did against Zabuza. Obviously a lot less complex, but similar enough situation, coupled with just how blatantly cool it was, had people saying, just like I said earlier, that this is what Sakura should have been. And regardless of whether you agree with it or not, Nobara definitely shows her usefulness here, and the main thing people say about Sakura is that she's useless, even though that's not really true. Nobara has the luxury of being useful towards the beginning of the story within the first 64 chapters and within the first 24 episodes, where Sakura didn't really start to be useful until Naruto Part 2 started. You look at this fight and where Yuji has a weakness, Nobara covers it, even though she's the weaker character, and same for Yuji, covering Nobara's weakness. Nobara isn't that fast, Yuji picks her up, and since he can't see behind him, she covers his back. They activate poison, and Nobara being a bad matchup for them gives Yuji openings with resonance and then exercise Kechizu. While Eso is getting away, Nobara uses resonance again to make sure Yuji can land the final blow. Everything in that fight was just them complementing each other's specific styles, but before this, you wouldn't think Nobara could do something like that, because even though she's a fighter and definitely tough, there's nothing displayed outside of normal superhuman I can take a beating or be tough moments. I don't even think I'm overstating the impact this fight had on the readers or watchers of Jujutsu Kaisen as a whole, since Nobara's cool points come virtually all from this fight. All she does after this is get directly back to losing. It's almost like Kishimoto tricks us at the beginning of Shippuden and makes us think Sakura is going to be useful due to her performance against Sasori. Nobara gets knocked out by Haruta, talked down to by Nanami, not necessarily in a bad way, but he says you need to be grade 1 level to continue past this point, and Nobara is currently being evaluated for a grade 1 promotion. This statement really only carries weight because of that promotion evaluation, and I'll get back to that in a second since I have more to say about it. Nobara then helps Yuji out by hitting a resonance on Mahito's soul, but obviously the ultimate L follows this. The things I just mentioned are both unneeded and disrespectful, especially for someone you plan to knock off in this very arc, added on top of the fact that this is the third in our main trio. Like I mentioned a bit ago, Nobara is due for a promotion to grade 1, and in case people forgot why she was due for this promotion, it's because of her performance with Yuji in taking out 2 special grades. This once again circles back to this being Nobara's prime time moment. But I think it's kind of weird to just have her progression as a sorcerer stop here essentially. Even before Nanami says she just isn't grade 1 level, she thinks of Nanami as the true definition of grade 1 and says he's on a complete another level than her. I'm sure a few people will know where I'm about to go with this, but take her other 2 fellow first years in this regard. Yuji is stated to rival Nanami in striking strength by Ino, and Megumi even has a domain that Nanami says if he didn't show up, he, Naobito, and Maki all would have been done for. Because aside from Toji's introduction, Megumi was going to open a hole in Dagon's barrier and let everyone escape it, a move that it was stated Dagon noticed too late, so it would have worked. Compare this to Nobara, where in Shibuya they just keep making it clear she's out of her depth here. She's told to just go home by both Nanami and Nida, but despite this she chooses to stay, but I'm unsure why Gege chose to punish her for choosing to stay and fight. If anything, it fits in with people not running away and choosing the coward's way out, like how Gojo tells Megumi and what Sukuna scolds Jogo for. So if Nobara is doing everything right, why does she end up with her head exploded? I'm not even saying necessarily that Nobara needed to get her grade 1 statement or feat the same way Yuji and Megumi did. I'm just offering up the idea that it could have been left ambiguous. It does no harm to the story that way, and if anything, makes Mahito seem like more of a threat to have one-tapped an alleged grade 1 level sorcerer in this weakened state he's in. He couldn't do the same thing to Nanami beforehand when he was a newborn curse. This is where I'll start to mention some of the changes I would make for Nobara and Shibuya, just to give her more of a presence there. For the sake of not changing things up too much and taking the easy way out, since we all know most of the time a story can benefit from being longer, I won't try and add chapters in, just alter what we already have. To be clear as well, I'm talking only about altering the events of Shibuya as they happen after Nobara's evaluation for grade 1 comes. For starters, let's still have Nobara run into Haruta, but just make her look more impressive. Obviously she can't win here per se, but her screen time can be made better use of. For example, Nobara has the advantage of being both a close and long range combatant because of her nails. Instead of having Haruta run into the station after Nida, have Nobara shoot nails to zone him from getting in the entrance. Then you have 4 pages of extra time in which you can have Nobara try resonance or even take one of Haruta's stored miracles away. You could also have Nobara try resonance on Haruta's curse tool and have it not work because Haruta did say it was his curse technique, so that could lead Nobara to think they have some sort of connection to exploit with resonance. It all can justify Haruta saying Nobara is stronger since the last time they met, because as it stands, that statement sits as kind of a nothing statement since she didn't really do anything to him or slow him down in any way. His follow-up statement about how they don't live in a world where you win by being strong also could be interpreted in a way that implies Nobara is actually stronger than him, and this is just a bad matchup for her. But that just sounds like an interpretation to just have an interpretation, if you get what I mean. Just before Nanami enters the room, Nobara and Haruta are about to go at it again. This can be the same with Nobara on the losing side due to her failed resonance or whatever, and the events with Nanami can also play out the same with him taking Nobara's spot and beating up Haruta badly. Nobara can even look up to Nanami in the same way as a model example of a grade 1 sorcerer. Nanami's comment about Nobara not being grade 1 can be changed to her not following him for another reason, because I'd argue Maki isn't grade 1 level at this point either, and she goes down to B5F. Just have Nobara sit and guard Nida until rescue comes. I mean, this is Shibuya after all, tons of curses are just walking around. Her fight with Mahito's clone I would keep virtually the same, since it meant a lot to Yuji telling him that he's not alone, but I'd modify Nobara getting unalived in one touch from Mahito. I think having her be weakened and Yuji trying to protect her but failing would, if anything, break Yuji's resolve even more, and me personally, I don't care for Nobara's backstory, so that can be cut out for time to make that happen. That's how Nobara would be in a perfect version of JJK for me. I understand the potential JJK has as a story where it gives these characters no plot armor, and I wanted to keep that the same while also having more respect be put on Nobara's character, which I think in the end makes this scene hit harder. Before I go though, I do want to talk about a few ways Nobara could return, because Gege has given themselves an out for her being unalived by saying that her chances of survival aren't 0. So it's not all said and done for Nobara, even though she's been out of the manga for over 100 chapters. A popular ongoing theory right now is that Nobara may play a pivotal role in the battle against Sukuna with her resonance technique, and that she may have found strength on the verge of death the same way that Gojo did in Hidden Inventory. In chapter 222, we learn that Gojo may have hidden away a Sukuna finger in order to permanently delay Yuji's execution. If this is the case, and let's ignore the Yuji is the last finger theories, then it's possible Nobara could have an impact on the battle without ever even going to the battlefield, by using resonance to strike the finger and disorient Sukuna, giving Yuji an opening to attack. The effectiveness of this is questionable, however, since Nobara's resonance with the strongest connection during the Eso fight didn't even fully phase Eso or Kechizu. This is where her getting stronger like Gojo on the brink of death would come in. Nobara has already talked about trying to reach the core of cursed energy in her fight with Mahito. and she's had a far longer time on the brink of death than Gojo, which could justify her also seeing it or understanding it without having the 6 eyes. And let's be real, if she does come back, if she doesn't get some sort of power up, she's going to be utterly useless. And given how Akutami wants to end the series, I doubt they'd have Nobara come back for no reason at all, if that is to happen. But who knows, maybe she's gone forever.